Did you know that properly poured concrete footings can last over a century? Let's find out if we did ours right to ensure that ours do too. In this video, we're pouring concrete footings from scratch, including rebar placement and what we learned about inspections. Many DIYers struggle with achieving the right mix and placement for concrete footings, often leading to structural issues down the line. We had exactly zero experience with concrete, so we did a lot of research before starting this project. In our area, a foundation must be a minimum of 4 feet below grade. That depth will differ depending on your location, so you'll want to contact your local building inspector's office to learn the requirements. In a previous video, I showed the trenches being dug for our footings. We had to dig trenches because our soil doesn't drain. Stick around to see how we combat that. We've also shown in another video how we assembled the rebar grid for our footings. We're working from engineered blueprints, so knowing where to place our footings was easy. We just measured carefully along each of the 4 trenches and tied a ribbon directly above the center of the footing. After that, we laid out our wood forms and brought the rebar over. One of the challenges we had was that the walls had begun to slough off during a rainstorm. Brock had to pull some of that mud away so we were back on solid ground. To ensure our forms were placed correctly, we hung a plumb bob down from the green ribbons and marked the center. From there, the forms were placed in the ground, fairly centered and close to level, and the rebar was centered inside of that. Brock made sure the center dowel was straight up and down, but it didn't have to be perfect. In fact, it wouldn't remain perfect during the pour. Brock hated being down in the ditches, but my broken foot was so bad that day that I was mostly useless. We wanted to ensure the forms didn't move during the pour, so we surrounded them with sand that we had trucked in. And because there was so much water in the trenches, we added extra sand so I wouldn't sink into the mud once I got down there. We bought a lot of sand for this project. Once everything was in place, we got the go-ahead from our building inspector. The inspection was pretty easy. The inspector needed to see that our ditches were 4 feet deep and that we had the right amount of rebar in the footings. Since we had a time crunch and he was out of town, we were able to verify what he needed through photos. Not all inspectors will do that, but ours is a simple build. The next inspection won't occur until we have the walls and roof up. That one will be a lot more challenging. The next thing we did was build a chute for the concrete to run down. This would allow us to pour the concrete directly into the forms instead of just dumping from 4 feet up and hoping it would hit our mark. I'll put the step-by-step instructions in another video, but you'll get the gist here. And this is the final product. The moment of truth arrives when you pour the concrete. Watch to see how we combated the issue of water in our trenches. There was a lot of water in our forms. I did my best to push it out with a flat shovel while Brock poured bag after bag of concrete mix into the rented mixer. The truth is, I could have done this job on my own, but it would have been a much longer process. The bags of concrete are extremely heavy. I would have had to cut them in half just to pick them up. I would have needed more brakes. I would have needed a smaller mixer because I couldn't move the big one on my own. I am so grateful for my husband, who's willing to do the hard work for me. The concrete coming down the chute looks pretty dry. That is by design. We spoke with many concrete workers and contractors, and they all said the same thing. You can pour with the water in there, but it needs to be fairly dry. Not completely dry, but fairly dry. The mix will absorb a lot of the water, but will also displace a lot of water. In fact, you can see the water coming out of the form as we scoop in the first batch of concrete. That second batch is a little wetter, and it worked a lot better at displacing the water. I used the flat shovel to remove air bubbles and to ensure that the concrete made its way below the rebar grid, then used a trowel to smooth the top. In between footings, I made small trenches within the trenches to allow water to drain out. We did this exact process for all 22 footings. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, check out my other videos and let me know your thoughts in the comments below.